The first gunshot shattered the church bell before anyone realized. Christmas had already turned red. Snow lay thin and dirty along the boardwalks of Cottonwood Crossing, packed down by boots and grief. And inside the little pine church, every soul froze when the sound echoed through the rafters like a judgment. Men reached for pistols they had promised their wives they would leave at home. Women pulled children close, breaths trapped behind gloved hands. The preacher dropped his Bible, and it struck the floor with a hollow thud that sounded far too much like a coffin lid. The doors creaked open. A little girl stepped inside alone. She couldn't have been more than 6. Her coat was too big for her, sleeves swallowing her hands, the hem dragging through snow and ash. Her hair was tied with a ribbon that had once been red. In her arms she carried nothing but a small wooden box wrapped in twine. Her eyes searched the church until they found him. "Daddy," she said, her voice small but clear enough to cut through the fear. "I brought you a present for Christmas." Every head turned to Eli Turner. Eli sat stiff in the front pew, his jaw locked, his knuckles white where his hands rested on his knees. The sheriff's star pinned to his vest caught the candlelight, flashing like it wanted to run. He didn't stand. He didn't smile. He didn't even blink. The little girl lifted one thin arm and pointed past him. "At her," she said. Behind the last row of benches stood the Chinese widow. A murmur swept the room, sharp and ugly as wind through broken glass. Mei-Lin did not move. She wore black from throat to ankle, simple and clean, her hands folded before her as if she were already praying for mercy. Her face was pale, her eyes dark and steady. She had learned long ago that flinching only made things worse. Eli Turner rose slowly. "That's enough," he said, his voice low and tight. "This ain't the place." The child frowned, confused. "But you said Christmas was for telling the truth." A man laughed, short and cruel. "Looks like the China woman finally got what's coming." Mei-Lin closed her eyes. Cottonwood Crossing had hated her since the day she arrived with her husband in a wagon, full of dried fish, porcelain bowls, and hope that did not survive the first winter. When her husband died under a collapsed mine beam, the town decided his death had followed her like a curse. When cattle fell sick, when wells ran dry, when a child drowned in the river, someone always whispered her name. Widow, witch, liar. Only Eli Turner had ever told them to stop. He'd said she was under his protection. He'd said the law didn't care about skin or prayers spoken in other tongues. He'd said anyone who touched her would answer to him, and so they waited. Now the child stood between pews and damnation, pointing at the woman they'd been waiting to break. "Sweetheart," Eli said gently, stepping down the aisle. "Why don't you come here?" She shook her head. You promised," he swallowed. "Promised what?" "That you'd open it." She held up the wooden box. Eli's breath caught. He recognized it. He'd buried that box 10 years ago beneath a cottonwood tree by the river, swearing to God and himself it would never see daylight again. "How did you get that?" he whispered. The little girl smiled, missing 2 teeth. "The lady gave it to me. She said it belonged to you." All eyes went back to Mei-Lin. Her gaze met Eli's, and for the first time in years, something like sorrow flickered there. "You should open it," she said softly. Her accent was light, worn thin by time and silence. "Before they opened the past for you." The church felt smaller, the walls leaning in as if they wanted to hear. Eli reached for the box with shaking hands. Inside lay a blood-stained deputy's badge, a child-sized boot, and a folded scrap of paper yellowed with age. A woman screamed. Eli's knees buckled and he caught himself on the pew. The memory crashed over him like river ice. 10 years ago, when Cottonwood Crossing had been younger and meaner, a Chinese man had been found hanging from a cottonwood tree. The town called it suicide. Eli had been the deputy then, ambitious and tired of being small. Mei-Lin had come to him that night, her hands trembling, her English broken by grief. She told him her husband had been beaten, dragged and hung. She'd told him she'd seen the men. She'd begged him to write it down. Eli had looked at the faces waiting outside his office. Window, ranchers, miners, men who voted. He had burned her statement and told her to go home. 3 days later, a little white boy disappeared near the river. They found one boot downstream. The town needed a monster. They found one in a widow who spoke too softly and bowed too often. Eli had known the truth. He'd known the men who'd killed the husband had taken the boy too, silencing a witness. He'd known because one of them had laughed about it over whiskey, thinking Eli was already one of them. Eli had taken the badge of the deputy who tried to speak up and never spoke again. He'd buried the evidence. He'd told himself it was for the good of the town. Now his daughter stood before him, holding the grave in her hands. "Daddy?" she asked. Why are you crying? The church erupted. Men shouted. Women cried. Someone reached for Maylin. Eli moved faster than anyone had ever seen him move. He drew his gun and fired into the ceiling, plaster raining down like snow. No one touches her, he roared. Not now, not ever. His voice broke on the last word. Maylin stepped forward. Let me speak, she said. Someone spat. Why should we listen to you, you lying? Because I have been silent long enough, she said, and her voice carried. She knelt in front of the little girl and took her hand gently. You are brave, Maylin said. Your mother was brave too. The child blinked. You knew my mama? Maylin nodded. She came to me when no one else would listen. She trusted me. Eli closed his eyes. He remembered his wife that night, pale and shaking, telling him she'd overheard men by the river, telling him there was a child screaming, telling him she couldn't live with the quiet anymore. He remembered telling her to forget. She never did. She hid the box where only a widow would think to look, Maylin continued. She said if anything happened to her, I must give it to you on Christmas, when truth is hardest to refuse. A sob tore from Eli's chest. I didn't kill her, he said hoarsely, as if the town had already accused him. She took sick. Maylin looked at him. Silence is a kind of killing. The words landed heavy. Outside, boots pounded on wood. Someone had rung the alarm bell. The men Eli had protected for years were gathering, faces hard, hands armed. They won't let you leave. Eli said to Maylin, they'll hang you and call it justice. She nodded. I know. He looked at his daughter. Snow drifted through the bullet hole in the ceiling, settling on her hair like ashes. Eli straightened. Then they'll have to hang me too, he said. Gasps filled the church. He took the badge from the box and pinned it to the pulpit. This star don't belong to me anymore, he said. I broke the law to keep my place. I let a child die. I let a woman be buried alive by lies. He turned to the door. Anyone who wants the truth can follow me to the river. He handed his gun to the preacher and took his daughter's hand. Maylin walked beside him. The crowd parted, unsure whether to stop them or kneel. At the cottonwood tree, the ground was frozen hard. Eli borrowed a shovel. His hands bled. He did not stop. When the box of bones came up, small and wrapped in cloth, the men who had laughed years ago stepped back. One fell to his knees. Another ran. The truth did not need shouting after that. By nightfall, the river carried whispers instead of screams. They did not hang Maylin. They buried the boy properly with a name and a prayer. Eli Turner resigned before the sun rose. On Christmas morning, the little girl placed a ribbon on the cottonwood tree. What did I give you, Daddy? She asked. He knelt and held her close. A future where lies don't live forever, he said. Maylin stood at the edge of town as the snow fell clean at last. And for the first time, Cottonwood Crossing did not call her anything at all.